It's a new year. 2023 is here. Putting on my list of minis. New season, let's cheers. Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about the past. Time to get on the Not Your Average Joe podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Not Your Average Joe. So today we are talking about a topic that is something that needs to be addressed for sure, something that still happens nowadays, and something that has happened for a long time, for centuries upon centuries. And I thought I would talk about it today. So I kind of want to talk about how it was back then and how it is now with this specific topic. But before I do, I want to give a quick announcement regarding my podcast. So, in the near future, I'm hoping to do a lot more podcast episodes in person. So, I won't be constantly here in my room doing uh interviews or, whatever you want to call these episodes with my fellow guests. If they do live out of state, and, of course, nowadays with these plane tickets are so expensive. So, those will still happen here on Zoom. But if you live here in Alabama and you want to do a podcast with me, more than likely I may give you the choice of, if you want to meet in person or if you want to just still do it on Zoom, which, some people still prefer Zoom just due to, busyness of, life, and I totally understand that. But I just thought I'd put that out for all of my viewers and for all of my guests that, in the near future, I'm hoping to do a lot more in person interviews with some of my fellow guests on here, whether they've been past guests, current guests, future guests, whatever the case may be. So I thought I'd bring that up right quick. So today's topic is going to be on monogamy. So monogamy, I know people are probably thinking, why talk about monogamy? You're not even married, you're single, single as a Pringle. But I think reason being is because in my past I have been in a relationship um where there was a side piece that jumped into the game. There was, a situation, it was my first relationship that I was in. So for people that do the math and for people that know my history, I guess you know who that person is, but I'm not going to expose this person's name due to privacy and all that. But anyways, I was in a relationship with this person, and for 2 months, for the last 2 months of our relationship, there was another guy that was in within the relationship that I was unaware of. So I was being cheated on during that period, and it was hurtful. A lot of it was due to, this was my first relationship. And even when I was 18, I still had that desire to date with a purpose. I don't date just to say I'm dating somebody, not because I just want to be not single. I want to date with the purpose of, like, this is going to be my future wife. And, sometimes, we meet people for certain reasons. Sometimes there's a lesson learned out of these moments. And, that was definitely a lesson learned for me. So, that's kind of why I want to talk about it, just because I feel like I've gone through an experience. Not that I've been married to like more than one person, or, I've never been married at all. But, I just thought that this would be a good topic to talk about, and just something to you know, not look forward to. I mean, like, yes, I do want to look forward to a monogamous marriage, with my future wife. But, right now that hasn't happened. But, I just want to kind of talk about this kind of in preparation, and kind of talking to the future me in a way, and hopefully talking to some of you viewers that, are, you know, kind of stuck on this stance, whether you want to be in a monogamous relationship, or, some of the people out here are into like polyamorous, which, I'm going to talk a lot more about that and kind of why that's frowned upon nowadays, and why I definitely don't agree with polyamorous or polygamy and stuff like that. So, a lot of people may notice by now, of course, and my faith is very important to me. I consider myself a Christian, not only a Christian, but a Christ follower. There's a lot more to being a Christian than just saying that you believe in Christ and believe in God. Um, there's that aspect of being obedient to his word and following him and giving him the glory and, picking up your cross daily and following him with all you got for as long as you got. So, there's a lot more to it. And there's a lot of polygamy. There's a lot of um, people with multiple wives or concubines in the Bible. So I do want to talk about those as well. But first, before I get to that, I do want to talk about modern day relationships. So I know in previous episodes I've talked before about an open relationship. If you go back to the episode about marriage and relationship, I did that with my friend Tasha, and we spoke about open relationships. And we spoke about it because I feel like nowadays is kind of trending again. I feel like a lot of people are getting into this idea of dating multiple people at the same time. And I just, I look down upon it, I mean, like, not in a judgmental way, but like just more in a, I don't know, I just feel like it's just such a mind game. And I feel like you can't like have that seriousness with, more than one person. You're never going to find the perfect person in your life. Like there's somebody that's perfect for you, but they're not going to ever be perfect because we live in a fallen world, filled with sin. So, I say that because, some people may say, well, they have, let's just say I'm married and my wife is amazing at many areas, but like the one area that she lacks in is like being a good listener. So then I start trying to pursue another woman that listens to me whenever I talk to her, about my feelings and, whatever's going on in my life. And so that starts like a polygamy, kind of relationship. And that's why I kind of say that like nobody's perfect because you got to love people for their imperfections as well. Um, so that's super important. And I think if you just keep going from one person to the next, and, and you just have all these side pieces, like nowadays people like to talk about side chicks and people like to talk about having, I can get your man, I can get your man, and I'm with these many people, and these people provide for me, and it's like is that really the life you kind of want to live? Like, I'm not sure if I really want to live a life where just I have so many women in my life. First of all, I can't even get one. But like if I were to get more than one, like like I feel like there would just be a lot of mind games. Like I said, there's a lot of competition. I feel like that would go on, and I would almost feel like I'm on an episode of The Bachelor, which, by the way, spoiler alert for those people: 99% of the people that are on The Bachelor, um, is not there for love for real. Like I feel like most people are on there just for pure entertainment to entertain the viewers, and that's sad. I mean, there may be like a couple of successful relationships that come out of that, but for the most part, I feel like most people are not into um the actual reality of reality. I feel like these reality shows um they can have real situations happen, but like I don't know, I just feel like a lot of it is produced and staged, and it seems very obvious to me that it's very staged and very produced to where all they're trying to do is just trying to get viewers to watch and to make money because at the end of the day, um that's what a lot of people are in this game for when it comes to playing a role or a personality, a character. People are hoping to get paid eventually. So, you know, that's kind of like the Hollywood side of the things. But so I bring that up because I almost feel like The Bachelor in a way kind of um embraces the idea of dating more than one person. And I mean, I understand if you're just trying to get to know like 20 different women, but like, do you really think in real life that that's like healthy for people to do? Like, you just have 20 different women that you go on dates with, like each and every week. Like you just find time in your day, every day of the week to just you go with, the woman number 17 and woman number 4 on Tuesdays, and then you go with woman number 6 and woman number 10 on like Wednesday. Like you just, I don't know, it just don't seem practical and it don't seem real, and it just doesn't seem like something I would encourage to the viewers. And, shows like The Bachelor, or I mean, I know there's been shows even on like MTV and VH1 and, channels like that where there were dating shows, where people compete for a man or for a woman. And yes, those can be entertaining, I'm sure. I'm sure a lot of people like to see people fight over that person, but like in reality, I'm not sure if that's like really the best way to go about doing stuff like that. So, I know I hate to kind of bring reality TV into this topic, but I mean, it is like what's currently going on, like here in this world in modern day culture, is that, there's shows like these out there that, where one man, 20 women are trying to compete for their love for this one person. And then, you just know it's not going to happen, because then here comes a season 2 of this person trying to look for love again, different set of women. And, it's a pattern, but I mean, it works for TV nowadays. It seems like it works for the viewers, because some of these shows have been going on for season upon season, especially when you bring, somebody that didn't win the love of The Bachelor. So then they become the Bachelorette. And then a bunch of men come in, and, then it's like a whole pattern that goes to it. So there's that. That's just something that came to mind when I thought about monogamy. Um, Not that, anybody's trying to look for me to be the bachelor, the next bachelor or anything, because I would not do it for many reasons. One reason, just because I just don't think it's practical, and I don't feel like a lot of it is real when it comes to finding love. So, I would rather just have that one-on-one time with, somebody, and, just trying to pursue them and only them. So, kind of back to the open relationship kind of thing, most people are open to the idea of open relationships, even marriages. Some people are open to like marriages, having somebody come in as a hall pass, or even threesomes nowadays. And I just don't see that as being healthy for the relationship or marriage, because it almost makes it seem like you're not good enough. Like, let me bring somebody else into this to spice things up, or let me bring this person into it because you're not satisfying my needs. And when you go into a marriage or a relationship, with lust into your mind instead of love into your mind, because, at the end of the day, that's why, we know we're grown up by now, people. We know that a threesome is when there is like sexual relations going on with 3 people at the same time. I mean, like, so we just know that, your focus of bringing in a hall pass, somebody else into the game whenever it comes to having sex, is that really you're just thinking with you're not thinking with your head. Like, you're not thinking with your heart and with your mind. You're just thinking more into the lustful area, like, oh, how can we spice up our sex life? How can we improve in this area? And so, that's just something that came to mind whenever I was thinking about about monogamy and open relationships. Um, so yeah, I'm just not really highly, I just don't like the idea of open relationships because I just don't see it as being healthy. Um, and then that kind of ties into, the old days, the biblical days. So, I say the reason why I don't encourage open relationships is because in the Bible it talks about, um, a marriage being between a husband and a wife, not a husband and wives. But then, of course, there's that counterattack, there's that comeback from people that talk about, well, what about, some of the people in the Bible that have multiple wives or, concubines and all that. So I do kind of want to address that right quick because, I feel like that's very important. And to be honest, I've had those kind of moments where like I even questioned that myself. Up until a couple years ago, I kind of had that cleared up, by my brother Matt. And we used to do like Bible studies over at his house, and he does have a podcast called Disciples Direction. So, and it is available on most podcast streaming platforms, like as well as mine, same areas, like same places like Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and Spotify and all those good places. So be sure to go check his, podcast out, by the way. But I bring that up because a couple years ago I had the same concern, and one day or one night we did it. You used to do it on like Friday nights, but he had like a Q&A. I remember asking him about polygamy and like why why was it okay for some people in the Bible to have multiple wives when nowadays everybody kind of frowns upon it. So I'm gonna kind of, you know, go based off his answer and also some of the research that I've done as well. So, a lot of it is, stuff that I agree with. Definitely there are answers like my brother Matt's answer, and then also the research that I've done, I've seen just to where how it makes sense. And, it's just a lot of it is depending on the timing of history and what was going on at that time. So yeah, let's talk about it. I definitely think that this is something that I would love to clear up for people that may be questioning monogamy and why is polygamy encouraged in the Bible, which that is a question that I used to have, and now I kind of have the answer to it. So now is my time to talk about it. So yeah, of course we know in the Bible there are, a lot of people, a few prominent and really big people in the Bible that did amazing things, of course, for the glory of God, Old Testament and New Testament. I want to specifically talk about the people in the Old Testament. There are some people, from Genesis, all the way to Malachi. Um, we do see where there are some people that have multiple wives. You think of, in Genesis, you think about Abraham. There's, his wife Sarah, and then he also had a child with another woman. So that she had Ishmael, and then Sarah had Isaac. So there's that story, and then you think about Jacob, and you think about or Israel, whatever you want to call them. It kind of goes hand in hand, but Jacob had multiple women that he was with, and he had, you know, 12 sons out of that. So, you think about that, of course. And then, of course, you think about King David, and then you think about his son Solomon, who had like 700 wives, like 300 concubines, which, whew, that's like, crazy in itself. So, a lot of questions come to mind. This was a question I used to have, and this is a question I'm sure most people have still to this day is, Like, why would God allow something like that to happen? Like, how is he okay with something like this? And from the research that I've seen, I, I've noticed something that stood out to me, that like there's a difference between allowing something and accepting something, when it for, something to happen. So just because it was allowed to happen doesn't mean that it was okay. Like, there's many people in the Bible. It just goes to show outside of Jesus Christ, of course, God, and, you know, there's nobody's perfect outside of Jesus Christ in the Bible. Everybody has a moment of weakness, or falling into sin. And you see that in many areas, whether you see, a prostitute, whether you see, somebody that is, lustful, whether you see murderer, whether it's a drunkard, there's so many people in the Bible, and so many sins, and a lot of those sins, still tie into today's world and today's culture, and some of it is actually encouraged, which I've spoken about before in the past, like there's certain lifestyles that are against the word, but they are encouraged nowadays, and we're being told to embrace these moments and embrace these topics and embrace, all these different kind of things. And, at the end of the day, we just got to continue to still lean into the word of God, because God is the same God yesterday. He is the same God way back when Adam was created, Adam and Eve were created. That's the same God today, same God tomorrow, same God until, forever, for eternity. There's never a time where God stops being God. And the word is still relevant today. Most people will say it's not relevant just because they don't care. And, they think that there's a lot of um loopholes, there's a lot of contradiction. And, polygamy is one of those kind of things. So that's why I want to talk about this today. And, people do wonder, or people forget that there's a difference between allowing something to happen and accepting something to happen, like accepting something for what it is. So I don't think that God was okay with polygamy. Just because it happened doesn't mean that it was good. Like, doesn't mean it was okay for it to happen. It just a lot of it had to do with probably the timing of things, like historically how things went. Like I saw something where, some women probably were okay with being the other person, the other wife or wives, because their only other option was probably something like prostitution, or like slavery, or something along that lines, to where um you are giving your body away to more than one man, and you're trying to make ends meet. You're trying to, and of course, back in the day, and um even until recent times, I feel like, of course, the men have been like the head of the household, and like the one in charge, as far as, leading his family. And, women depended a lot on men, historically. So, I just feel like maybe they just thought, my only option is to be wife number 300, like as far as, Solomon's kind of, history, his marriages, or, like I'd rather be wife number 310 than be with man number 200. Like like what kind of, like, she may be thinking, what kind of life would that be? Like, I would rather just be committed to one man, even though that man has many other women. So, not saying that it's okay, for something like that to happen, but I'm just trying to put things into perspective. If I was the woman, like during that time, like for instance, King Solomon, like if I was one of his wives, like that's just something that would probably come to mind that like, at least I'm with one man. I'm not with 300, or, however many, men it takes to, to make, to get through life. I don't know, like I'm just trying to, really put things into perspective when it comes to that. So, yeah, so at the end of the day, I really don't think that, you know, God said that it's like okay, like for it to happen. It was just meant to happen because it has led like it has led people to I don't know, just having a security of being with one person and not having to give your body away to somebody else or to be in bondage to somebody else. Like, at least when you're with one person, I guess. And, not saying that, I know I've said this before and I'm going to repeat it again. Not saying that this was ever okay. It's just, it is what it is, So that's just, at the end of the day, that's, the mind frame that I have to go into it, when it comes to the idea of, polygamy back in the Bible days, biblical days. And, nowadays there are still many countries out there, here in this world that, and that have polygamy. There's many people out here that have many wives and many children through those wives. And, then history kind of repeats itself with their children and, kind of continues on. And I don't know, if I was just in that position, just personally for me, I just would hate to see something like that happen in my life because I don't know, I'm just into like I hate making somebody feel worthless or not good enough. And I just feel like if I had, a main wife but then I had many other wives, I could just see that my primary wife, the one that I gave my heart to first, just kind of feels like useless or like I'm just here like am I even good enough? Was I ever even good enough? And I don't know, I just kind of put myself in their shoes. Like it just almost becomes a competition. Like you're not like I gotta be better than these other wives to show him that you had a reason for choosing me as being like your primary wife. So, and not only like those dating shows, like I'm even thinking of shows like that, Sister Wives or, whatever on TLC. I think about, that man that has, I don't know how many wives he has now, but like at one point I feel like he had like four wives. And I could just see jealousy brewing up and I could just see, drama happening out of that. And, of course there was no cameras back then in the biblical days, but I'm sure there was some jealousy going on. There was some competition going on between, all the women and, for that man's affection and for that man's love and quality time. So just because there wasn't a camera, back then doesn't mean anything. So I just think that it's super important to just address that just because I know a lot of people do start wondering, people like to, of course, when they hear that you're a Christian, they're ready. Well, what about this in the Bible? What about polygamy is embraced in the Bible? It's like, well, not exactly. I used to think the same way. I used to think like what? Like why does Jacob have so many like women and children and why does King Solomon have that many people women? Like was one not good enough? And there's always a time and a reason, and there's for everything. And it's not our place to question why God allowed it. That's not our place at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, God is sovereign and He has a plan for everything. But but I really do think that, like, God wasn't accepting of it, because when we see in the New Testament, we do see, like in Ephesians 5, where it talks about, the man leaves his father and his mother and unites with his wife, and like the two become one. And I know I'm kind of paraphrasing in there, but that's basically what it's saying, to become one. And not only in Ephesians, I see it in many other parts of the Bible, in the New Testament specifically, where it talks about husband, wife, and it talks about coming together as one. And yeah, like I said, I just really think that monogamy is the way to go, because there's more trust that comes into that marriage and relationship. Because if you start bringing somebody else into the game, I feel like I would start losing trust in my spouse. Like, I would be thinking, like, whoa, like, do you like this person more than me now? Like, you've been spending a little bit more time with this person than you have with me. Is there a reason for that? Like, and then you start getting jealous, and then you start getting bitter, and then it goes downhill from there. Crazy things happen, and crazy actions have been taken when it comes to jealousy and envy and stuff like that. As an ugly monster, that jealousy, which I spoke about in a previous episode with my friend Isaiah. So, be sure to go check that one out as well. So, at the end of the day, monogamy, personally to me, and I feel like according to the word of God, is the way to go. There's no other way around it. Like, it just talks about husband and wife. They don't talk about husband and wives. And just because it happened a good bit in the Old Testament doesn't mean anything, because the timing between the Old Testament and the New Testament, oh, big amount of years apart, like hundreds upon hundreds of years apart. And depending on what part of the Bible you're reading in, like especially with Genesis, that's the first book of the Bible. And there's many other books that come after that, until you get to the New Testament. So, at the end of the day, like, you really have to think about it from that way. Like, not everything in the Bible happened at the same time. And I'm sure most people know that, but you never know. Like, there may be people that, have never read the Bible that, wonder about this. So, and even nowadays, like, there's some things that do happen nowadays. There's so many things that are on the rise. Like, we're trying to think of things, for example, like, even nowadays, with what we're talking about with open relationships and, hall passes. And, when I say hall passes, I mean bringing somebody else into your relationship and marriage. And, and even concubines, which a concubine is just, a different word. And nowadays we use the word mistress, somebody that is okay with being the choice, B. Like, you're like plan B. You're the second in line. You're not the main woman. You're not the main man. You're just there. You're mashed potatoes. You're not chicken fingers. You're not the entree. So you're okay with being the side. So I really think that that's my way of looking into monogamy. Just think it's super important to to be obedient to God's word and to pursue one person at a time, because at the end of the day, like, personally for me, I've been in that place where not realizing it, but like, I was the main person, but then 2 months later, I found out that there was another person that was in our relationship. There was another guy that this ex was with. So, you just it was very hurtful. Like even when I was 18, it was my first relationship. It was still hurtful, and I could see, how in marriages, like people that bring in other people into their marriage or a relationship, emotions get involved. Like we as humans can be very emotional, and when you throw lust into the game, that just ties more into your emotions because you become, passionate for somebody. And, when there's passion, there's love. And I mean, there could be, of course, lust in there too. And when it's, and the more you're around somebody, the more you grow fond of them and the more you adore them and, want to be with them. And if you're the mistress and you're getting jealous because the man is with his wife, like, she was there first at the end of the day. So you might want to go look elsewhere for a single man. And there's plenty of single men out there. Believe me, I can say that. There's plenty of single women out there too. So yeah, that's, mainly where I'm at when it comes to monogamy. And, if you want to provide any feedback, definitely provide that feedback when it comes to monogamy. I just, you know, pray that the Lord prepares me for my future wife. I'm not even thinking about no future wives. I just want that one future wife that I know will have imperfections. I know it's not perfect, but you got to work through those things. I mean? Marriage is, a challenge for a reason. Many people say that marriage is hard, to get through, and it's understandable. I can see how it's hard, and you got to fight those battles together. You can't try to fight for your marriage on your own. It takes two to tango, and it takes two to make a team. There's no I in team at the end of the day. I hear that a good bit. So, there's got to be, some common ground and meeting in the middle and working on your marriage instead of trying to bring somebody else into your marriage or your relationship. So, I know a lot of people may be thinking, well, it's not hurtful if I'm, dating more than one person at the same time, just because there's no paper, there's no marriage, that's there. Like I'm just, trying to figure out who I want to marry. So, some people may go into open relationships for that reason, dating other women without the other women realizing it. And I I still just I just still feel like it would just be better for you and for the person that you're with to just just go with one at a time. Like things just don't work out, then you can move on to the next person. But why not just, spend that quality time with that one person and really get to know them for who they are and for, the stuff that they do and what they love, instead of trying to, you know, go with all of these different women and then just kind of being on surface level with all of them. I feel like the more you get to spend time with somebody, that the deeper the friendship goes and the relationship goes. And, I think that at the end of the day, you want your future wife to be your best friend. And, you don't want just a roommate or an acquaintance when you talk about your wife. Like, you don't want to just tolerate your wife or tolerate your husband. You want to, love them and like really have a good relationship with them. So that's all I really have on monogamy. I think that, it's just super important, to talk about just because, like I said, nowadays we may not use the word polygamy, but like there is, that idea of, open relationships being embraced, open marriages being embraced, and even our television shows, reality TV, and, or even, just shows in general that are, maybe not based off a true story, but like I have situations where there are people with multiple, you know, one person going out with multiple people, and then you see where the hurt and the pain and the jealousy and bitterness and fighting and all that gets involved. So, I know we thrive off of meaning television shows thrive off of entertainment. And that's the way I see a lot of these like love dating shows nowadays, is that it's a lot of it just boils down to pure entertainment. And a lot of it don't really go towards actual true love. There may be one or two cases where it actually does work, but 99% of the time it don't work. So anyways, I appreciate everybody for watching or listening to this episode, here on Not Your Average Joel. And I look forward to talking to y'all next time. And I hope that everybody has an amazing day, an amazing night, depending on what time of the day you're watching this. And if you have any feedback, you can always comment on my YouTube page or message me privately on my Instagram page at Not Your Average Joel, or even comment on there as I post my reels on there too. So, anyways, everybody, I hope y'all have a great day, and I will talk to y'all later. Goodbye.
Thank you, everybody that took the time to listen to this episode of Not Your Average Joel. My podcast is available not only on YouTube, but also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast from. I also have an Instagram page where you can see outstanding moments, behind the scenes, and even a funny moment or two from each episode at Not Your Average Joel Podcast. If you want to get in contact with me, then my Instagram page is probably the best way to do so through direct messaging. I appreciate any kind of support that you have given to this channel, whether you are a guest or a listener to this podcast. Once again, I thank y'all so much, and I look forward to sharing more of my life with y'all on the next episode of Not Your Average Joel. Goodbye.